In a recent interview with the Japanese publication Nikkei, Shigeru Hot Stuff Miyamoto made some rather bold claims in that he wants Mario to be more famous than Mickey Mouse, which is a goal that's not too far-fetched given that Nintendo's top plumber was already more recognizable to children in 1990. But if we're being real here, Nintendo's still got a long way to go before they could realistically challenge Disney, as Miyamoto put it. How could Nintendo possibly challenge a company that owns everything, you ask? Well, sit back in your dad's favorite lawn chair, pour yourself a glass of bowl milk, press the subscribe button if you haven't already, and allow me, the world's shortest man, Cameron, all one word, to tell you how Mario could be more famous than Mickey Mouse, and why he probably never will. Alright, so like I said, Disney's a company that pretty much owns everything, and they've also been around for damn near 100 years, with Mickey Mouse recently celebrating his 91st birthday. So yeah, getting an Italian stereotype from 1981 to become even more ingrained into the average person's brain than friggin' Mickey Mouse is definitely not going to be an easy task, especially considering that almost every human being alive watches TV and movies, while only a fraction of them play video games. And to make matters even worse for Nintendo, Mickey Mouse has got a much stronger foothold in the video game world than Mario does outside of it. Like, yeah, there's been a few cartoons and live-action movies, including a porno that Nintendo owns the rights to, but as far as being a worldwide name goes, Mickey Mouse being more popular in movies and TV shows is definitely a huge advantage over Mario since way less people play video games. However, the fact that more people aren't playing video games is actually something Miyamoto said he's looking to change when it comes to challenging Disney, which I guess would explain all the wacky things he's been trying to do in recent years. Personally, I think a lot of his innovations that were meant to get more people into gaming are kinda stupid, like how Star Fox Zero made you use motion controls for no reason. But it is kinda bullshit how even in the modern day, parents have no problem letting their kids watch movies all day, but for some reason think video games that require effort and critical thinking are somehow a bad thing. To be fair, I guess there are way more people addicted to playing video games than there are people addicted to watching TV and movies, but I feel like that's just because people call one an addiction and the other being lazy. At any rate though, I'd argue that video games are a lot better for your brain than TV, because even if you play the same video game multiple times, it'll never be the exact same thing as opposed to watching Frozen 37 times. Thankfully, gaming's not as frowned upon by parents anymore these days, given that way more of them grew up with video games themselves, but even if gaming were as universally accepted and available as other forms of media, Nintendo would still have an uphill battle as far as mascots being recognizable goes. Technically, Nintendo's actually older than Disney, but all their most famous mascots have only been around since the 80s, so if the above-average sized den wants to fast-track their way into people's brains, then it probably wouldn't hurt to expand their horizons a bit more than they already have, which seems to be the case given the Super Mario movie that's currently in production and the Zelda series that's coming to Netflix. Seeing how most of Nintendo's early attempts at bringing their characters outside of video games were mediocre in most, if not all cases, it's probably not the worst thing in the world that they backed off on it for a little bit. After all, it'd be a lot harder to win the masses over if you had to wash the bad taste out of people's mouths thanks to decades worth of shitty movies, rather than just staying off the grid completely. I mean, making people want something for 20 years is only going to make that much more of an impact once they finally get it. And as long as the wait's worthwhile, it'll definitely be a step in the right direction to get a little more equity for Nintendo's IPs. Back in the 90s, pretty much every TV show and movie based off of video games sucked horse noodles, because the creators are usually people who only saw video games as mindless crap meant for kids. All they really wanted to do was make a quick buck off it without understanding why it was popular in the first place, which obviously would never work. And to a lesser extent, the same thing could be said for comic books for the most part, but nowadays there's a lot more people in the entertainment industry that not only grew up with comics and video games, but they also had bad comic and video game based movies to learn from, so there's a lot more hits than misses these days. And if you ask me, I think now's as good a time as any for Nintendo to give it another try now that people who actually have passion and want to make things based off their IPs. Now, do I think great Nintendo movies would eventually lead to the company being as big as Disney? Well, probably not. At least not for a long time anyway, given how much of a head start Disney already has, but I do think it's possible if everything goes well. However, we are talking about Nintendo here, who've been known to be a little behind the times, shall we say, with things that are basic to the rest of the world. You know, pretty much everything that has to do with the internet and free promotion, although that's not to say Disney isn't a bit silly from time to time in that department either. Assuming Nintendo keeps the pace up with video games, though, and they do a good job at expanding into the world of entertainment, then who's to say in 100 years or so that Mario, or even Pikachu for that matter, won't be more recognizable than Mickey Mouse? And for whatever it's worth, Mickey Mouse is about to become public domain if Disney can't use their influence to delay it from happening again like they did in 1976. Honestly, even though the character's about as old as my grandfather's muscles, I think the idea of Disney losing Mickey Mouse is friggin' ridiculous, but be that as it may, Mickey Mouse entering the public domain's probably gonna lead to a hell of a lot of weird stuff being made, and I'd imagine most of it won't be very good. I have no idea if it'll actually hurt Disney in any way, since most people will probably know what's authentic and what isn't, but it is something to think about. And on the flip side, Mario's got decades before Nintendo needs to worry about other people being allowed to make a Mario game, which definitely would hurt its credibility. I mean, even the worst Mario games are still pretty good besides Lost Levels, and there's already assloads of Mickey Mouse content out there as it is, so a lot of people might not even notice bootleg shows and movies being tossed in the mix anyway. After all, nobody confuses any of the Sherlock Holmes franchises with each other or anything like that. But I don't know, I feel like bad video games are a lot harder to forget than bad cartoons or movies, seeing as how they're more expensive and take a lot more of your time. Although, one thing Mario has in his favor is that while more people are simply aware of Mickey Mouse, Mario seems to be a lot more relevant and active. Don't get me wrong, Mickey Mouse is definitely around and everything, but, like, when's the last impactful thing Disney made where Mickey Mouse was the driving force? Yeah, I know there's some cartoons here and there, but I think it's safe to say that Mario Odyssey is a lot more popular than Mickey and the Roadster Racers. It just kind of feels like Mickey's complacent and coasting off his reputation, whereas Mario's video game series is still developing and clearly a top priority in Nintendo's. But honestly, who even knows where the video game industry is going to be in a few decades anyway, let alone a few years? I mean, for all we know, Disney might have a more prominent role in the industry in a few years, and to be honest, I don't know what's more surprising, the fact that Disney's not more serious about video games or that Nintendo's not more serious about expanding outside of video games. I guess both companies realize it's easier said than done and just prefer to stay in their own lanes, but I kinda think it's only a matter of time before Disney makes more of their own games based on their IPs and vice versa for Nintendo. You might think Nintendo shifting their focus elsewhere would lead to a quality drop in their games, but it's not like the developers that have to make movies themselves or anything like that. Apparently Nintendo's got $10 billion lying around, so they could use a little bit of that money to invest in something new by hiring people who know what they're doing, just like how Disney would do the same thing by hiring developers if they decided to dip their feet into the video game industry a little more. Or, you know, they could just sit back, let third parties come to them, do all the work, and then share a percentage of the earnings. Either way, I think this is where Disney's got the upper hand as far as pop culture relevance goes. I'm sure people are gonna play video games for the rest of humanity, but like I said, I don't know what kinds of changes the video game industry is going to see over the next few decades, and at the moment, Nintendo's got all their eggs in one basket, so if things get rocky, it's going to be a lot harder for them to catch up with Disney. No matter how many stupid business decisions Nintendo makes, people are always going to want to play their games, so I'm not saying I'm worried about them or anything like that, but as far as becoming as big as Disney, or at least having a fictional character as famous as Mickey Mouse, I think it's damn near impossible. So if Shigeru Miyamoto's dreams are ever going to come true, then Nintendo's got an uphill battle to say the least. But anyway, what do you think about Mario someday being a bigger deal than Mickey Mouse? Is it something you think's possible to happen in the near future? Is it something you think's possible at all? Or do you not give a poop and just want to take your hot rod out for a spin? Either way, let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll try my goddamnedest to respond to everybody. But let me tell you, if there's two people who are more popular than Mickey Mouse and Mario in my mind, then it would definitely be today's patrons of the day, Israel Boserios and Devin Ray. If you want to be badasses like these two, then consider supporting FU Game Crew on Patreon for loot boxes in the mail and other wacky rewards. And if you want to make a cameo, then send pictures or videos of you rocking any FU Game Crew merch like these legendary human beings you see before you. As always, like and share this video anywhere on the internet to help this channel grow. And if you want to prove that you're not down with registered sex offenders, then go ahead and press the subscribe button if you haven't already. My name's Cameron, all one word, and I'll be back with more videos soon.
So I want to say thank you to your loyalty, thank you for your support.